Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. We hear more testimonies from the National Citizens Inquiry taking place in Red Deer, Alberta. The national president of the Public Service Alliance of Canada is demanding Prime Minister Justin Trudeau get involved in negotiations to help end one of the largest strikes in our country's history. And we hear about a Canadian country music star who's making his way to Cardston to put on a very special concert.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. 2 Canadian flights left war-torn Sudan on Thursday carrying 118 evacuees. It's unclear how many Canadians were on board, as officials say some of the passengers are citizens of other countries. Meanwhile, Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly is pushing back on suggestions that Canada was too slow in taking action after intelligence warned the situation in Sudan was deteriorating. She says when the violence flared up in Sudan, she was at a G7 meeting in Japan and says her government got to work right away. It was day 2 of the National Citizens Inquiry in Red Deer, Alberta. Now, a group which is hosting witness testimonies across Canada is looking into the government's handling of the pandemic. Retired Colonel David Redmond offered up his testimony at the inquiry. Redmond is credited with developing emergency management plans for both Alberta and Canada. He says one of his biggest concerns during the COVID-19 pandemic was the impact the lockdowns had on our children.
Our children have been massively impacted. They've watched their parents do things they never thought parents would do. They've started to believe that a completely locked down society is normal. They've lost education, but far more importantly, they've lost hugging their friends. They've gotten to the point where in elementary school, when my grandchildren were little, I used to go with them to school all the time. And kids, as soon as they got out of the car, they'd run and hug each other and laugh, and you'd see them going off down the road. Kids now are afraid of each other. The interaction of humans is so required, and this entire experience of COVID has destroyed our little kids, our kids in middle school when they become of age.
Dr. Gregory Chan is a physician from Pinoque, Alberta. He was also a witness at the inquiry in Red Deer. Dr. Chan says some of his patients experienced a number of concerning side effects upon receiving the COVID-19 vaccine.
Is there anything new prior to you having this symptom like abdominal pain or chest pain? Oh, no, there's nothing there, nothing. Okay, have you had any new treatments? No, nothing. Any vaccines? No, nothing. How about a COVID injection? Oh, yeah, actually now that you mention that, yeah. Like that's a very common thing that I would have experienced. And you actually have to specifically ask about that particular injection or issue. But at the time, I think people were just carrying on with what they were doing, and they didn't think to link the two together.
The National Citizens Inquiry will continue on Friday in Red Deer before it moves on to Vancouver. Testimonies will also be heard in Quebec City and Ottawa. A Lethbridge woman says she's now considered a person with a vaccine injury after receiving the jab back in 2021. She's now sharing her story of some of the impacts the vaccine had on her. As BCN's Angela Stewart explains now, the woman has also gained quite the following on TikTok after using the social media platform to tell her story.
Inside her home, reading a book to pass the time as she can no longer work, sipping on a hot cup of coffee, and now grueling task. It's been almost 2 years since she got her prognosis.
Came to the conclusion that it was Bell's palsy.
Carrie Sakamoto, an overall healthy person, she, along with her husband, like many, got their COVID-19 vaccines in April of 2021. After the province stopped administering the first doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine, she was left trying to decide on an alternative shot.
With lots of thought, I even spoke to a doctor. We decided to pick Pfizer.
Both became ill shortly after receiving the shot, but only she developed debilitating conditions.
I had started vomiting because it felt like my brain was on fire, and that's the only way to explain it. It was a burning sensation in my head. On the way to emergency, I could see in the side mirror my face felt strange. It felt swollen. And when I looked in the mirror, I actually saw it drop.
She spent 17 days in the hospital, and her condition now serves as a constant reminder that her life will never be the same.
Balance is really bad. My vision in this eye is bad. I have hearing loss. My face is still paralyzed, and it's all permanent.
Wanting to share her story, she turned to TikTok and has gained thousands of followers on the social media platform and has connected with people all over the world.
Women from the UK with very similar symptoms. So, yeah, it's been hard to hear a lot of stories. Really sad.
For now, Sakamoto continues to try and make the most of her situation and plans to continue sharing her story in the best way she knows how. For Bridge City News, I'm Angela Stewart.
By the way, Sakamoto also had the opportunity to share her testimony at the National Citizens Inquiry when it was in Saskatoon earlier this week. You know, there are a number of people who cannot stand wearing masks, especially the ones which were forced upon us during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, a number of health officials said they were not only for our benefit, but for also protecting others from catching the virus. Ivor Cummins is a science researcher and health advocate from Ireland. He says from his research, there were far more cons than pros when covering up.
The benefit-harm ratio is catastrophically negative, like lockdowns, not because the masks are particularly harmful, though children's development is criminal. That's a terrible one, but generally physical health. But the benefit is so non-existent from all the data that any harms, are going to outweigh it. And the other thing is, to mandatory force a human being against their own personal judgment to cover their face wherever they go. Just think of how sinister that is.
Make sure you catch the full interview with science researcher and health advocate Ivor Cummins coming up later in our program. The head of the Public Service Alliance of Canada says the federal government refuses to budge on its latest wage offer despite the union amending its own. Chris Aylward's comments come on the 8th day of a strike by 155,000 federal workers.
The employer sent an email to our bargaining teams, many of them standing behind me, saying that they're not moving from their position. My friends, they still have 9% on the table over 3 years. And they're telling us that we have to move. That's not how bargaining works, Madame Fortier. Once we make our pass, then the employer is supposed to come back and make a pass. They did not do that last night. The Prime Minister has one of two choices to make. He can either get involved personally and help settle this dispute, or he can turn his back on the workers who are striking, predominantly women making $40,000 to $65,000 a year.
Federal Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino says he's taking the first step in the Trudeau government's gun buyback program. He said he's looking at compensating retailers who have assault-style firearms in stock that the Liberals banned back in 2020. Raquel Dancho, the Conservatives' public safety critic, says the move does nothing to reduce crime.
Assault-style firearms were designed for a battlefield, and they have no place in our communities, in our places of worship, in our schools, or in our playgrounds. They serve no legitimate purpose other than killing the greatest number of people as quickly as possible. And that's why we banned them. Yet we made a commitment to those law-abiding gun owners who had bought these firearms when they were legal that they would be fairly compensated.
So we're very disappointed that the state of Canada is seeing significant public safety issues with gangsters getting their hands on illegal firearms, smuggling them in from the United States. And today we're hearing tens of millions of dollars. Actually, he's being pretty cagey, conveniently, about how much it's going to cost. But we know tens of millions of dollars at minimum will be spent on this when our police are being starved of resources and criminals are running rampant on our streets. So very disappointing.
The RCMP in Saskatchewan released a preliminary timeline of the stabbing attacks which took place in the province on September 4th of 2022. 11 people were killed in those attacks, which occurred in various locations around Weldon and on the James Smith Cree Nation.
Overall, RCMP investigators and specialists documented, examined, and processed 42 different crime scenes, buildings, vehicles, and more as part of this investigation. Over 1,250 investigative tasks have been assigned and new tasks continue to be identified. 697 exhibits were seized during the course of crime scene processing, and 257 witness interviews were completed by investigators and RCMP Behavioral Sciences Branch experts.
The main suspect in the stabbings, Miles Sanderson, surrendered and was arrested in Rosthern, Saskatchewan on September 7th of 2022. He died later that day while in police custody. Lethbridge police have charged a man in connection with 2 armed robberies at the same bank here in our city. The incidents took place between March 17th and April 11th at the CIBC located on 13th Street North. In both cases, a lone man entered the bank, pointed a firearm at employees, and demanded money. He fled the scene with an undisclosed amount of cash. Fortunately, no one was injured during either robbery. The suspect was later arrested on April the 25th. 51-year-old Jamie Gerard Bagoo faces various charges, including 2 counts each of robbery with a firearm. Staff Sergeant Pete Christos with the Criminal Investigation Unit of the LPS says the Victim Services Unit worked with staff at the bank to ensure they were okay. He also said there are stiff charges related to firearms offenses.
Under the criminal code, when a restricted firearm is used in the commission of an offense such as this, as robbery, the minimum punishment in the first case is 5 years, and in a second occurrence is up to 7 years, and that'll be up to the courts to decide. It's not every day that we even hear of this type of crime happening, let alone in a bank. So I know that our victim services people have been in touch with them constantly, and I'm certain that CIBC corporate has reached out and taken care of their staff as well.
Bagoo remains behind bars and is scheduled to appear in court on April the 28th. Lethbridge firefighters responded to a house fire in the city's west side around 6 p.m. on Wednesday. The blaze was located in the 200 block of Heritage Boulevard West. Crews from 4 stations were able to extinguish the fire, but said there was extensive damage to the main floor kitchen and smoke damage throughout the home. Damage is estimated at $350,000. Fortunately, the family was out of the house at the time and no firefighters were injured. The cause of the blaze is under investigation. Well, we enjoyed some light showers today in Lethbridge, but it appears as though the rain clouds are moving on. Jeanette Rocher is now with an early peek at the forecast. Jeanette, we should be seeing 20-plus degree temperatures in much of southwestern Alberta fairly soon?
Yeah, very soon, Hal. As early as Friday, we're looking at a daytime high of 21 degrees with mainly sunny skies into this evening, an overnight low of 2 degrees with partly cloudy skies. No wind, though. I know that was a struggle that we dealt with last night. Did you hear it? I know it kept me awake. My house was shaking. This evening, though, no wind and fairly calm tomorrow on Friday as well with mainly sunny skies. We're looking at a UV index of 7, which is very high, especially for this time of year. But wait till I give you that 7-day forecast. It's going to seem like summer before we know it. I'll be back later in the show to give you all those details.
Looking forward to it. Thanks so much, Jeanette. The Alberta government announced more mental health support for children. Minister of Mental Health and Addiction Nicholas Milliken says a $4 million annual commitment will expand the integrated school support program so more young Albertans can build resilience and improve their mental well-being.
Led by the Calgary Police Youth Foundation, the Integrated School Support Program provides a range of prevention and early intervention supports for students, including meal programs, after-school care, and access to school mental health professionals. The goal is to help students in their social, emotional, and physical well-being while improving their academic performance. This is because when it comes to mental health of our kids, prevention and early intervention is key.
Milliken says the funding is on top of the $10 million already invested to expand CASA mental health classrooms. Alberta NDP leader Rachel Notley says if her party is elected next month, it will invest $75 million tax dollars into a Health Innovation Challenge Fund. She says it's a groundbreaking initiative to improve healthcare access across the province. Notley says this will help to simplify a pathway to procurement.
This new fund will prioritize the procurement, scaling, and deployment of innovative software and equipment in healthcare settings, everywhere from operating rooms to outpatient clinics, to improve patient outcomes, reduce wait times and procedure times, and to lower costs. The Alberta NDP would invest an initial $75 million into this fund over the next 3 years.
Well, the Alberta election is coming up on May the 29th. Many are anticipating the writ to officially drop on May the 1st, putting a number of candidates in campaign mode. Barry Morishita is the Alberta Party leader. He's running in the same Brooks Medicine Hat riding as UCP leader Daniel Smith. We recently asked Morishita about the best way to describe his party. He says it's fiscally conservative, yet socially liberal.
I think we are fiscally conservative. I think we really do agree you need value for money and that you have to balance the books and pay for what you get. It's important for people to understand that there's a direct link between what they pay in taxes and what they get in services. And then when it comes to the social side, government has a role to play to look after people, public education, public health care, social services. But one of the things that we're significantly different about those files is that we really think we need to bring some real innovation into those areas in order to deliver the services better.
Make sure you catch the full interview with Alberta Party leader Barry Morishita and myself coming up after Business News. A new report by the online company HelloSafe released some eye-opening numbers about distracted driving here in Alberta. According to the report, the number of deaths related to distracted driving in our province has increased by 65% in just a single year. The report went on to say that in 2021, 76 Albertans died as a result of distracted drivers, compared to 348 across the country. These drivers can face stiff penalties with up to a $287 fine for each violation. The Lethbridge Electronic Music Festival recently announced that they had to cancel their upcoming music event. The festival would typically bring in around 45,000 people to Galt Gardens. BCN's Micah Quinn chatted with staff from LEMF, who cited a lack of funding as the main reason for the event cancellation.
There's a bit of a money issue there, and then a lot of it really is just the time as well. Typically, we start working on LEMF in December or January.
Unfortunately, for this year's Lethbridge Electronic Music Festival, there will be no bright lights, music, or dancing. David Fritz, the president of the organizing committee for LEMF, said the budget to run the event in 2022 was $48,000, with the city of Lethbridge chipping in $15,000 of that through grant money. The group also raised extra dollars for the music festival through fundraising initiatives, the beer garden, and corporate sponsors. Issues like inflation have greatly impacted the ability to put on the show, and Fritz told us it just wasn't feasible to move forward.
Typically, with the grant we get from the city, there's 4 intakes, and we weren't sure if that grant was going to be taking place again this year. And then we found out in March that it was, and that it would be awarded near the end of April, and that the maximum went from $15,000 to $10,000.
Fritz says coming out of the pandemic, things like artist fees, insurance, and production have doubled and in some cases tripled. Despite the cancellation, Fritz says the LEMF community has been supportive throughout the process.
It was really great to see everybody sharing memories and the support and what LEMF has mean to them.
For now, group members are hopeful that this is not goodbye, but instead, see you next time. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
Hopefully LEMF will be back next year. Canadian country music singer Brett Kissel will be making a special stop in the town of Cardston this weekend. The St. Paul, Alberta native says he's never had the opportunity to perform in Cardston until now. He says he prefers performing at smaller, more intimate venues as opposed to the much larger stadiums.
I love being able to see everybody. So when we're playing to, probably around just 1,000 people, and Cardston is all we've got capacity for, it's going to be really, really great to have that connection. And connection is very, very important in my world and in my business. So getting a chance to play a smaller venue, often people, what a crowd may lack in numbers, they make up for in enthusiasm. So sure, it may be a small crowd, but it's going to be a mighty crowd. And that's why I'm really excited that, anybody who wants to travel from, Lethbridge or from any of the surrounding communities, this is an opportunity to see me in a setting that is going to be a lot more intimate and a lot more face-to-face than probably anything else I'm going to do this year.
And Kissel will be performing at the Cardston High School this Saturday. What an amazing treat for the students and teachers. Well, the rain clouds appear to have left us for now here in southwestern Alberta. Lots of sunshine is on tap for the rest of the week. A full look at the weather picture is coming up. You know, hopefully you had a chance to enjoy a nice outdoor barbecue today or even take your dog out for a nice run. We enjoyed some fairly warm temperatures across much of southwestern Alberta. Jeanette Rocher is now with all of the weather details. Jeanette, we could see 20 degrees on Friday and potentially up to, 30 by the middle of next week?
Yeah, Hal, it's going to look like a summer before we know it, because look at these temperatures. We're looking at a daytime high of 21 for both Friday and Saturday. Plenty of sunshine to go around, too. Look at that 7-day forecast, up to 24 on Sunday, back to 23 on Monday. And look at that, Tuesday up to 28 degrees and all the way up to 30 on Wednesday. Maybe we'll see that record-breaking day after all. The average high for this time of year, 15. We're going to be well above that. Average low, 1 degree, 29. That was our temperature on this day. Record breaker back in 1987. And the coldest on record for this day was -11. That was recorded back in 1916. That is when the sun rose this morning, sunset this evening at 8:43 p.m. We're now looking at 14 hours and 27 minutes of daylight, so close to that 14.5-hour mark. Okay, a fairly sunny one on the west coast tomorrow, 19 degrees expected in Victoria. A few degrees cooler by the coast, though, by the water. 18 for a high in Vancouver, but listen to this, 26 inland. Lots of sunshine there. 17 for a high in Edmonton. Looking at clearing skies in the morning. 21 for a high in Calgary. And clearing by noon as well. Also 20 to 40K winds there. A windy one tomorrow in Regina. They're looking at 30 to 50K winds. And then 40 to 60K winds by the afternoon. 19 for a high there. Partly cloudy skies. Regina sitting in at 17 degrees. And 13 for a high in Winnipeg with a mix of sun and cloud. 40% a chance of showers expected tomorrow in Toronto. High of 14 degrees. 19 for a high in Ottawa. Beautiful sunny skies for both Ottawa and Montreal expected tomorrow. Montreal looking at a few fog patches in the morning, high of 17 degrees there. Into Fredericton, 16 for a high. Also seeing some foggy conditions in the morning. That should clear up though. Dissipating around noon, mix of sun and cloud for the rest of the day. Halifax sitting at 15. 8 for a high in Charlottetown, looking at a 30% chance of drizzle. St. John's, Newfoundland, 2 degrees rather, for a high, 60% chance of flurries. Looking at a wind chill of -7 in the morning and could see some freezing drizzle by the afternoon there. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
Today's weather report is brought to you by Ridge Utilities, providing competitive rates for electricity, natural gas, and internet, while investing back in communities across southern Alberta.
French company Total Energies is selling its Canadian operations to Suncor in a deal worth just over $6 billion. The deal would see Suncor pay $5.5 billion in cash, plus an additional amount of up to $600 million. The amount is conditional on Western Canadian Select benchmark oil pricing, along with certain production targets. The agreement means that Suncor will own 100% of the Fort Hills oil sands project. Glencore says it's willing to bring its takeover offer for Teck Resources directly to the company's shareholders. The Swiss commodities giant says it is ready to engage shareholders if the board at Teck Resources does not come to the negotiating table regarding its unsolicited proposal. Officials at Glencore say it could further improve on its proposal structure, terms, and value through shareholder engagement. This comes after Vancouver-based Teck repeated its assertion that Glencore's offer is a non-starter. Boeing says it lost $425 million in the first quarter. Officials say they're dealing with production issues on their jets. The loss is more than analysts were anticipating. Company officials did say, however, that revenue jumped 28% from a year earlier. The company continues to get orders as airlines scoop up new planes to meet rising travel demand. Boeing's latest production problem involves fittings used to attach the tail to the fuselage on its 737 MAX jet. Airlines will have to wait now for new planes until Boeing fixes the problem. Now, here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was up 155 points on the day to finish at 20,522. The Dow was up 524 points to 33,826. The S&P 500 was up 79 to 4135, and the Nasdaq was up 287 points on the day to finish at 12,142. West Texas Intermediate oil was up 59 cents to 74.89 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 5 cents to 2.35 US. Gold was down 2 cents to 19.8776 US an ounce, and silver was even to 24.93 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $11.37 per bushel, barley is at $9.12, canola is at $16.97, and corn is at $10.41 per bushel. Live cattle were up 93 cents to $175.45. Feeder cattle were unchanged at $202.68. Lean hogs May contract were down 15 cents to 78.13, and the Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours to 73.54 US.
Recapping one of our top stories, the Alberta government announced more mental health support for children. Minister of Mental Health and Addiction Nicholas Milliken says $4 million annually will expand the integrated school support program so more young Albertans can build resilience and improve their mental well-being. Milliken says the funding is on top of the $10 million already invested to expand CASA mental health classrooms. The Alberta election is just around the corner on May the 29th. Coming up next, an interview with the leader of the Alberta Party, Mr. Barry Morishita. We shall see where his party stands on a wide range of issues. Listen, if you see news happening in your community, be sure to drop us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. We'd love to hear from you.